On our morning show today from WRCO, State Senator of the 14th District, Sarah Keyeski is our guest in the studio today to talk about what is going on, and we welcome her along just a little over a month on the job officially now. How's it going, Sarah?
Exactly, yeah. I'm a month in. It is a fascinating journey, let me tell you that. It's been great. It's been surprising. It's been heartwarming, and I'm learning so much.
I know that we wanted to give a little bit of your background,
Sure.
but you came from the Cashton area way back when. That's something I did not know about you until I was kind of looking up some info for the show here today.
Yeah, I grew up on a small dairy farm there in Cashton, Wisconsin. Graduated from that school, and then went off to study. I got a bachelor's degree at Luther College in Iowa, and then a master's degree at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois.
And you've been busy in the private life. I know you're a mental health counselor. Is that correct?
Yeah. So my career has been mental health services. So I've been an individual, family, and couples therapist for the last 25 years. I've worked for the rural clinic in Toma, much of that, called Gunderson Health Systems. And about 6 years ago, I also started a small private practice in my town of Lodi. And so I've been full-time doing that all these years now, and am brand new to the political sphere.
I was going to say, when you announced to family and friends, maybe getting into the political ring, did they suggest a mental health counselor for you? I say, Sarah, this is not a good idea. Maybe you better, maybe you better talk to somebody.
Oh my gosh, that's a good one. They probably should have. People were really surprised when I considered it, but I considered it because people asked me to do it. And when people that you respect in the community ask you to step up and do something for the community, it was humbling, and it really gave me an opportunity to think about, well, how do I want to serve? I've been serving in this way, right, as an individual therapist, doing family and couples work. But if there's another way that I could serve, and it's perhaps has the potential for being more impactful, I thought about it deeply. My family understands who I am. I've always been somebody that takes on a challenge, works really hard, cares deeply, and gets active on things that really matter to me. So they weren't that surprised that I initially considered it. But this was when I was considering it as an assembly candidate. And so at that time, there was really, based on those maps, there was really no way to win, just kind of how the landscape was. And I was okay with that. I wasn't looking to start a new career in my 50s. I was really happy with my life the way it was, but I also felt it was really important to be civically involved and active in presenting the values that are really important to me. And, like fairness and equality and respect for others and working together, and some of those fundamental things that I've always lived by, growing up on a small farm, in a strong Lutheran background, where your mission was to help one another. Your mission was to care about your fellow person. And so this was an interesting ask by my community, but it felt really right, honestly, to do that. And then the maps changed. That was in March of 2024. I had already been running for the assembly for about 6-ish months, maybe. And all of a sudden, I got asked to transition to the Senate campaign, to be a person running in that. And that was a whole different ball of wax, because that was a closer 50-50 race. I was running against an incumbent that was much beloved. And I had to really, again, sort of think deeper then about, well, why would I actually want to change careers? And if I won, and I had to really get clear about what I stand for, what my true intentions are, as a representative of this bigger area. And honestly, it was really exciting because the area that I represent is the 14th Senate District. It has changed with the new maps. And so it is the combination of 7 different counties. So it's all of Sauk County, all of Richland County, and parts of Dane, Columbia, Juneau, Adams, and one township in Vernon County. And so that was so reflective of like my history, my beginnings, my current life. I live in Lodi, a town of 3,000 people, but I've lived in big cities, so I know some of the workings of that. And I felt really compelled to be a voice, particularly for rural Wisconsin, because that's where my heart is. That's where I started. That's where I ultimately returned after going off to the cities. And that's where I'm raising my children. And so it's very important to me to protect that area, that tradition in our state. And so when I got the chance to maybe be that voice, I stepped up and was really excited and so proud to have won.
So you defeated the incumbent, Joan Ballweg. What do you think put you over the top, Sarah, in the election?
Gosh, I don't know, right? There's so many pieces to an election, to a campaign. I don't presume to know exactly. What I can tell you is I worked really hard. I was as many places as I could be throughout the district, and really wanted to continue my voice for those that are maybe less heard in the Capitol from Democrats. You know, Democrats haven't had the history of having a real rural districts that they could be a voice for because of the way the maps were created. And so I worked really hard to be someone that was in these rural areas, to hear the concerns, to speak to the voters. I went to lots and lots of parades. I went to lots of pancake suppers. I went to lots of discussions. And I think, you know, outside of all the things, like there's TV and there's radio and there's mailers and all of that, the thing that I'm most proud of probably is that the person that I have been all of my life has been consistently true to me. And when I was asked to take on this challenge and become a candidate, for me it was really important that I was not going to be asked to change. I wasn't going to be manipulated into some version of a politician that I didn't recognize myself anymore. And so I, you know, as much as they, you know, asked me to run, I had to really vet who was asking me, what party I was, you know, then going to stand for, who I was going to be working with. And they allowed me to stay true to myself. They allowed me to have the voice that I have. They are still allowing me to do that. And it might not always go party line. And that is okay, because it is the voice of my district. And so I hope one of the things, both that I'm most proud of and I hope came across, is I genuinely am this person. I don't change. As I told them, I said, I am well baked at this point. I'm not somebody that you can really create into some kind of alternative version. And so that's good and bad, right? Because I don't know how to be polished in a really formal political kind of way. I just know how to be me. But I think that's also kind of refreshing that I'm not maybe a typical politician. And I'm just a gal that has lived a really normal life like the rest of people. I've raised a blended family of 6 kids. I've had a career. I've built a business. I've worked in my community. And so hopefully all of that together is part of why I was elected.
Right. And I think having an open mind, because in this day and age, you're going to have to work across party lines and do what's best for your constituents, right?
Yeah. I mean, I come to this knowing that I don't know a lot, right? And so I am doing my due diligence to learn as much as I can, be open-minded, to understand things at a deeper level than just the platitudes of the typical lines that maybe people will say. I'm trying to understand things deeply. I'm trying to understand things from both perspectives the best I can. I ask that question all the time. What are the kind of the dueling, if you will, perspectives, because generally speaking, they both have validity. Maybe one will rise a little bit higher, but it's important to me to make sure that I represent thoughtful, discerning decision making that is reflective of what's best for the constituents in my district. And that means listening to both sides. That means reaching out. I have had a number of meetings now with Republicans. Tony Kurtz was one that I asked him to come and sit down, and he did, and we had a lovely chat. And I just shared with him my desire to really work together. I believe he cares about his constituents, and I wanted to let him know that I too deeply care and want us to work together the best we can, despite being from different parties. And I will continue to do that as much as they will allow me. If they will take my meeting offer, I will do everything I can to make sure that we have a congenial, constructive conversation.
One of the big concerns right out of the gate, and I told you before we went on the air, school funding, we hear about that from so many administrators stopping by our studios here. You come from a small school, Cashton, back in the day,
yeah.
and so you know all about the plight of the small schools in the area. And what's your take on school funding and how we can improve that, or moving forward and trying to help some of these districts?
So I come from a small rural school. We had approximately 48 people in my graduating class, and I understand that our public schools are the cornerstone of many of our small communities. And so protecting them is really important to me if I want to protect our local economies, our local communities, the richness that they bring to the state of Wisconsin. So as I've been learning about the financial situation of most schools, I've been really heartbroken to see the choices that school districts are having to make to cut so many programs in order to manage. There was a disconnect between how we fund our schools and how it was linked to inflation about 15 years ago. And so there wasn't this continuation of inflation going with the state funding. And so when that didn't happen, the ways we get funding for schools is state aid and property taxes. And the dilemma is to make up that difference. And this isn't for like specialty services, fancy things. This is for keeping the heat on in a building when the cost of utilities is going up. This is for keeping the good teachers in when the cost of salaries is going up or insurance is going up. So these are the operational costs that are just going up because inflation does that, right? And so when there has been no connection to inflation with the state aid, then the ask has been, well, then we need our taxpayers to help make up the difference. And that I've seen be painful to my own town when we went to referendum in 2022 in Lodi, because it really pits neighbor to neighbor. It really pits taxpayers against the school in some ways, because they're feeling like they're already taxed so much, and all of a sudden they're having to vote to raise their own taxes. And it's quite a dilemma that is systematically problematic across the state. One of the things that I looked at is how many school districts in my district, do I at least have a part of, right? I have 30 school districts that I represent a part of, or people in 30 different school districts. In the last 10 years, I'm going to have you guess what percentage of those schools have gone to referendum.
I would say about 90%.
100%.
100%.
100%. Every single one of those 30 school districts has gone to referendum in the last 10 years, some of them more than once. Now, that tells me, right? I mean, just logic. That tells me this isn't an issue with one school district maybe being poorly run, right? This is a systemic issue across the state that we need to consider as vitally important to address immediately.
So what do we do moving forward?
Well, we have to figure out some way to change that formula, right? How we're funding our schools. We have to increase the amount that we are providing for our schools. One of the things that is quite interesting is that what we're seeing is kids with special needs. Let's say special needs. So they have IEPs, individualized education plans, where they might need assistive technology, where they might need an aid, where they might need nursing services, right, to help them function in the school, because all kids have a right to education, and public school has to provide that education to all of them, despite special needs. Right now, the coverage of those specialty services is at about, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out there, but is about 30%, right? That other 70% has to be found somewhere, and generally it has to be taken from the general fund to be able to provide those things that are mandated to provide. And so that means other things have to be cut. So we have to think about, how do we change that formula? That would be one of the very first. We must do better with providing funding for our special needs students. And there's different asks out there, but I would say that would be a huge beginning step.
Number one. Yeah. Some other priorities tying in with school. I know you're all for healthy school meals for all, and a bill that you went right to work on, didn't you?
Yeah, right. And so as I was going along on the campaign trail, one of the things I heard about is the stress that we're feeling financially, all of us, right? And how do we invest in a way that helps our tax dollars be well spent in a way that invests in our future? And healthy meals for all, providing meals for our children, breakfast and lunch, in every school across the state is an investment in our young people so that they can functionally learn and participate in activities, have the ability to focus, good regulation of their emotions, socialization skills. If they are not well fed, we know just the basics of that has dire implications for their ability to function well in school. And so not only would we be able to have a school that hopefully has children that are not having to have the anxiety of where's their next meal going to be, or not be able to learn because they have a grumbling stomach, right? But we then have a change in the dynamics perhaps in the school, in the classroom for our teachers. Teachers are burning out. We also have the benefit of the economic assistance, essentially, that will be for families. What we know is approximately on an average, a family with a child in school would benefit by about $1,800 every year that they could then use spent elsewhere if our schools provided these meals. So it has sort of a ripple effect, and that money then that families are able to save can be spent on other things that they need in our community to keep them thriving. So it's sort of a win-win in so many ways that I think it is a real starter.
Lots of times for students, that might be the only meals they get, the breakfast and lunch that they have at school.
Sadly, yes. Yeah. Yes. I mean, we have a really desperate situation with many children that don't have adequate nutrition. And the best we can do is make sure that basic needs are met where we can, so that they can thrive into the citizens we need them to be for the future. We will all benefit from that.
Yeah, and education is a great investment, isn't it?
100%. Yeah.
We've got more to ask Sarah Keyeski. We'll do that in a moment here as we talk on our morning show visit from WRCO Radio. Sarah representing the 14th District here in the WRCO listening area. State Senator Sarah Keyeski, our guest in the morning show studios today. Glad to have you in here for the first time, and hopefully not the last time. So
I hope to be reinvited.
Yeah, you sure will be. Mental health counselor in your private life and that kind of thing. And I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit because a lot of people were quite traumatized by the last political season and still probably feeling a little bit of that. What do you suggest for somebody that's going through some tough times right now as a result of that? One side or the other, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'll tell you, the thing that encapsulates how I have managed my own mental health challenges during times when I've felt a lot of angst, is I've leaned into a saying, and the saying is by Joan Baez, and it is, action is the antidote to despair. And when I was feeling that way post-COVID, post-election, what I did is I started a nonprofit. And it was oriented toward lifting our community, either side of the aisle. It didn't matter. I wanted everybody to come together and work on improving our small town in a way that was service oriented. So it was called Lift Lodi. And it was the way that I channeled my angst, basically, and said, I can't change big things maybe, but I can change my community. I can change my own mindset. I can make sure that I take care of me. One of the things I laughingly say, but is true, because I was, obviously working full-time as a therapist at the time, nobody wants a depressed therapist. So I had to make sure that I took good care of me, and that was the way that I did it. And so what I would say to people is, get active. Do what you believe in your backyard can make a difference so that you feel like you are part of the solution and not sitting back feeling like it's happening to you. Do what you can, use your voice. And that's ultimately, I inadvertently then got on people's radar, and that's how I got asked to run for office. And now I'm here in this position, right? And so I think if you have good intentions and you want to help and serve, I think it gives you meaning, it gives you purpose. And while not everything works out, and while, there's still things that are very distressing, I feel really good about the fact that I am doing everything I can to uplift the values I believe in and to do the things that will protect the next generation, because I have 6 kids that I'm very concerned about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for their future. That's probably 100%. Part of the reason about running and trying to do what you do as well, right? Absolutely.
I mean, I have 4 boys, twin girls, and it was actually challenging to think about running while 3 of them are still in high school. 3 are out of the home now, because I knew I would be gone a lot. I would be busy, and I was. I mean, I rarely was home. Most nights I would do something after working, or most weekends I would do something. So, that was a huge sacrifice for my family and for my kids, and I was worried about that. But the other thing that was really important is to show them, to role model what my parents have always role modeled to me. They would do mission trips. They would, go serve, and in the ways that they did. And what I saw was they believed in helping for the collective good, not just for our own family. And so that's what I explained to the kids, and that's what they really understood, is that I'm doing this. It's a sacrifice for us right now, but it's to help as many people as I can. And that's sometimes what we have to do. We have to sacrifice ourselves or, our benefit sometimes. Now, granted, the good news is I'm now home almost every single night. They see me all the time, and they're, sometimes sick of that. But for that year, it was a sacrifice that we were all willing to make. And it showed them what it means to have a civic responsibility that you live out that I hope they adopt someday.
You took over a little over a month ago, set to work right away. Priorities. Could you talk about some of your priorities here in this first year?
So on the campaign trail, probably the three things that I talked about the most are mental health, because I'm a mental health provider, our public schools and education being so important, and uplifting, supporting, protecting our rural communities. And so I was really proud to be heard in that, and my caucus, the Democratic caucus, the leadership appointed me to committees, because we're all on different committees, where we hear then the proposal of bills and decide and vote on them so that they go to the whole Senate. And so the committees that I've been appointed to are mental health, substance abuse prevention, family and children's, that's all one, agriculture and revenue, and education. So those are my priorities. And I'm really so grateful to be able to be on those committees where my priorities, and I think my district's priorities, really well align. So my hope is to do things that are protective for our agricultural businesses, our farmers, our small communities, making sure that they have the resources that they need to make sure our public schools are strong and vibrant, and hopefully helping them with the needs that they've been suffering under for many years now. And obviously mental health is huge to me, just health in general, but making sure that we're recognizing what I call the preventive issues that then contribute to mental health. Because the thing that I have struggled a little bit with as a mental health provider is people talking about, well, we all need access to therapy, or, bad access and we need to get into therapy and we need more therapists. I love that idea. I really do. But it's really not quite realistic, probably, that we're all going to be able to have access to mental health that is going to meet the current need, because the need seems to just be greater and greater. So what my hope is, yes, to have more affordability, to have more access, but to really think about preventative things, proactive things that go to the issues that are contributing to the mental health crisis rising. So that's food insecurity, that's housing destabilization, that's climate concerns, that's gun violence. Those are the things that are contributing to people being more distressed, that if we get to the front end of that, we are going to be able to manage much better than just trying to do on that back end and treat all of these issues.
Tying two of them together, mental health and agriculture, there's been a big push lately to, for farmers and agricultural people to have, more counseling and things like that in programs.
Yeah. So there's, that's such that's a soft spot for me. My dad, he is one of the people that I revere most in this world. He has passed, but he was a jack of all trades, did all the things on the farm. He was able to fix things and, manage the crops and, parent his kids and, mow the lawn and make sure that his cows didn't have mastitis. I mean, he was like the quintessential small farmer. But I know there were times when the commodity numbers would go down. The environmental factors that would play out, the weather issues, would cause great distress for him because it was out of his control. And what I understand now is, for those that are maybe a bit more stoic, these rugged individualists, right, that are so proud, they are suffering under the pressures of trying to maintain a beautiful family business, generally, generational. I'm from a century farm, in a way that is sustainable for good paying wages for their family to sustain them, and maybe, hand it off to the next generation. And it's getting harder and harder. And the despair, the losses, the grief, the stress is so high that we have a epidemic of farmers that are committing suicide. The rate for farmers committing suicide is 1.5% higher than the average population. It is tragic. And so there are resources we're trying to address, right? The governor is, other programs are. There's some beautiful things out there happening, which I really appreciate. But I think we need to understand that the mental health crisis cuts across all races, all genders, all socioeconomic classes, all political affiliations. It's everywhere. And we need to be really mindful. And that's one of the reasons why it's so important for me to be protective of our small communities, because if we don't, we are going to lose more farmers to this crisis. And that has ripple effects. That's a crisis I want to address as fast and as well as I possibly can.
We're all inflected by inflation. Inflation is a big topic right now as well as you take over.
Yeah. Well, that is frighteningly increasing. It was already hard, right? And so I'm concerned about just regular working class families trying to make do. I would love to see something we do have, we do have a budget surplus. I would love to see a middle class tax cut if we could. Again, we talked about those free meals in schools. That could be a way also to allow there to be a bit more money in people's pocketbooks that have children. I think we need to make sure that we address this head on in a way that's meaningful for our families, for the working class. And that includes farmers, because they are not going to be exempt from this too. I keep coming back there because I guess that's my that's where, like I said, where my heart is, and I'm concerned because as I've looked at some of the programs that are being cut, the tariffs that are being presented, I just see the cost of things being higher, the margins for profit being lower, and this is going to have dire consequences, and I'm really concerned.
Another bill I know that is near and dear to you, postpartum Medicaid expansion bill. Could you talk about that, Sarah?
Yeah, sure. So Medicaid expansion for postpartum care is done in 48 of 50 states. We are one of 2 that has not done it. We have 60 days postpartum care for mothers right now. I am a co-author on a bill saying we should have that, like the 48 other states, for 1 year. Because what we know is postpartum care, the needs aren't only in the first 60 days for the mom. And we need healthy moms so that we have healthy kids. So if they have a medical issue, if they have a mental health issue, those need to be treated well, so that we have them functioning well, both for themselves, for their newborn and any other children, or maybe their workplace. There are many things that happen postpartum that have an impact, and some of them are just not going to show up in the first 60 days. So having access to this is really, really important, and it's bipartisan supported. So last session, this bill was presented in the Senate and it was passed 32-1. So bipartisan support. We are hoping that it comes to the floor again in the Senate and in the Assembly. One of the big issues is there is the leader of the Assembly, his name is Robin Vos, the representative, that has said it is unlikely that this bill will be seen on that floor, which means there's no way it could be passed because he won't let it be seen. I fundamentally have a issue with that. I believe if we are the voice of our constituents, there are 132 of us total, 99 Assembly members, 33 Senate members. We should all get to vote on something that is this important and has bipartisan support. And not only bipartisan support, but support across the ideological frame. We have people both pro-life, pro-choice. We have all kinds of people that are supporting this. And so this should be something that's voted on. But we have one person right now that is standing in the way for even it being presented to a floor where 132 people would have the chance, or excuse me, where 99 people would have the chance to vote on it. That would be the assembly. And then if it doesn't get passed there, we can't pass it, even if the Senate does. That's disturbing. And so if people want our government to work, it has to have these situations addressed, so that the voice of the voters, the voice of your elected leaders are able to take votes on things for you. Or votes against them. That's fine. I mean, if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. But to not have it even presented to have a vote, I think is despicable, frankly.
That's frustrating.
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, not for just this topic, but for others, that comes up.
Indeed. Well, it's been very interesting for me to learn a little bit of the lay of the land, right? And I don't know. I'm a mom that's had 6 children. I'm a mom that started a business. I'm a mom that has, been a Girl Scout leader. I'm a mom that has started a nonprofit. I'm a doer, right? And so it is just so annoying to me to have the inability to do something that is blocked by one person. I find that just absurd, right? That's broken. And if we want to elect people that do the will of the voters, that cannot stand. That can't stand. I'm loud about it, because if people think government doesn't work, fix it. Fix it by making sure this cannot happen, by making sure that the people in leadership have to respond to their voters.
Another hot topic, and tying that in with mental health, is gun violence. You had mentioned that earlier as well. But and we had the unfortunate shooting in Madison, right in your area recently as well.
Yeah, I know this is a really hard topic to maybe find full common ground on. But I think there's some things that we can all probably agree on. It sounds like most people, if you look at the statistics, most people believe that we should have some reasonable regulations on things like let's have places where we could have guns protected, let's say, and so a locked a cabinet, let's say we don't have a loophole where you can buy them at a gun show. Maybe that wouldn't be good. Let's make sure that we address these issues that are forefront, because right now people are talking about the crisis we see with our children, and their anxieties being high. If you do not believe that having children starting at 4 years old learn how to do active shooter drills in our school, learning that their environment is not safe, that every day they go to school, be mindful, little children, that where you are sitting for most of your day, 5 days a week, it might be dangerous for you. Be on the lookout. If you don't think that affects their mental health, I don't know what to say. But as a mental health expert, I can guarantee you it does. I have had more clients come in session afraid to go to school, especially after an active shooter has happened. It can be nationwide. But all of a sudden, the anxiety of that, the anxiety for parents sending their children to school. So I think it's just common sense to start doing some common sense legislation in these areas. Not all things are reasonable, I'm sure, but I think some are where we need to address that this is part of the epidemic of the mental health crisis. Also, to see that those are tied rather than separating them into 2 different buckets, I don't think they are.
On a lighter note, we've been putting. You got the polka with the governor.
Oh my goodness!
What was that like?
Well, I grew up polkaing. We we would on weekends. There's usually a family wedding to go to most summer weekends. We would have to take a nap during the day so that we could stay up late at night and go to the receptions, right? And so I grew up on polka. And my mom she's 80 years old. She polkas almost every single weekend with her dance friends. She goes all around the local area. She lives in Bangor right now. So I was at the State of the State my first time, and I'm just so excited, right? I think you can probably gather. I'm just a very happy, excited person, and I get very passionate about things. And so it was really a great night. It was my first time ever being there. I'd never been in the assembly chambers before. It was lovely, and I was really excited about many of the things that the governor talked about. Well, at the very end, the UW marching band comes in, and they start to play, and oh my gosh, that was just such fun, right? Well, some of us that are just a little bit new and excited, we decided that we started to dance a bit because the songs were, on Wisconsin, and then Roll Out the Barrel came out. And I wasn't too far away from Governor Evers. I had heard he liked to polka. I asked him to dance, and he did. Now, I got to be honest with you. After the fact, I'm like, what did I just do? Right? It was really just sort of in the moment and just such fun. But, that's me.
Sure.
So I do me, like I said. And so me poking with the governor was really a highlight.
You didn't get a chance to bend his ear about anything, though, because, the polkas, you're moving and it's quick.
No, but I will tell you that before the budget address that comes out, I believe, on the 18th, one of the things that was interesting, I didn't know this would happen, but all of us legislators got time with him individually to talk to him about our budget priorities. So I actually sat down with him sometime in, it was maybe in December. I'm trying to remember now. And, had his ear. And then I sat with some of my assembly members under my Senate district, and we talked about our general needs for our area. And so I have gotten to bend his ear a bit. And as you can imagine, I talked to him about mental health, public schools, and our rural communities. Those were really the highlights of my conversation with him.
That's awesome. You have listening sessions you're planning for maybe in the coming year?
So again, after the budget address, which is coming up, I'm going to be having listening sessions. I'm also going to start having some time just around the district. But the listening sessions, I'm going to have 3 at least, one in each of the assembly districts that I'm in. Those are in the process of being planned. And then I'll have quote unquote in-district office hours also. Those are all coming up, and I'll be putting them on Facebook to let people know when and where. It'll be on our website. Hopefully that'll be up soon. So trying to get that word out, because I'd really like to hear from people what their priorities are, what they want me to really speak about, to encourage, to keep into the budget as the Joint Finance Committee goes forward. So I'm eager to get out into the district and to talk to people.
Well, thanks for accepting our invitation to come to the show, Sarah. We appreciate you. And
thank you for inviting me.
I hope that you'll come back more on a regular basis.
I would love to. Thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate you coming over here. I know it's quite a drive from Lodi.
But this is what I said to the person that introduced me coming into the office. I said, what was great is that part of the drive coming from Lodi to here is there's no cell service. And so I can't listen to news. I can't listen to music. I can't listen to anything. And I just have to be in my thoughts and look at the topography and the beauty. And right now with this fresh snowfall, it was actually really quite lovely.
Yeah, I think we all need to do that a little bit, taking in the scenery. And we drive by stuff every day we don't appreciate.
I know, disconnect, right? Yeah, it was forced disconnection. It was lovely.
State Senator Sarah Keyeski, a representative of the 14th District here in our WRC listening area, our guest on the morning show today.